everyone. Welcome to what is sure to be a great debate. My name's Chelsea Adler, and I am this year's Senate President. So, yes. Before we get started, I just wanted to tell you all that 3 years ago, I was actually in these very seats listening to a lecture series as a freshman, and I'm not joking when I say it changed my life. So, as a freshman, I got to hear Darlene Grant talk about her work as a social worker with a group of Girl Scouts whose mothers are in prison. And before that lecture, I had never even known about the School of Social Work or what you could do with that degree. And so I immediately enrolled in my first social work class, was elected president of the Social Work Council, and now, as Senate President, I still use skills that I've learned in the School of Social Work. So let me be clear, this is in no way an endorsement for social work tonight, but yeah, I just want to be clear, this is an invitation for you to sit back, relax, open your mind. We have 5 great presenters, and you really just never know what you could learn tonight, and if you could change your major. So without further ado, I would like to welcome the Dean of Undergraduate Studies, the one and only Dr. Paul Woodruff.
Thank you, Chelsea. I love her story about the lecture. I'm Paul Woodruff. I'm Dean of Undergraduate Studies. And I have to tell you an unfortunate fact about the university. We claim on our website and elsewhere that we change people and they change the world. And half of that is false. We don't change people. I've been teaching a long time. I've never changed anyone. But I have seen many students take the opportunities presented here and change themselves. And some of them have changed themselves in ways that have enabled them to change the world. And you have here on this campus opportunities that are as wide and deep as any opportunities you could have on any campus in the world to change yourself. And you have the opportunity as freshmen to choose how to do it. There are many ways to do it. But one thing I hope you keep in mind as you listen to the discussion today is no one changes the world alone. The various different fields that are presented on this campus are all involved in anyone's attempt to change the world. Now, tonight we have an expert panel which will be introduced in a moment. We have a wonderful panel of students, and we have a brilliant Master of Ceremonies. If you haven't heard of him as a great teacher, you haven't been listening. I'm now proud to present John Daly.
Never clap ahead of time. What if I'm bad? How do you take it back? My name is John Daly. I teach in the communication department here. Obviously, the most world-changing field. I get to host this panel, right? And tonight we're going to hear basically from 5 extraordinary professors. You know, we have Big Brother on TV, we have Dancing with the Stars, we have the American Idol, we have Wipeout, okay? We have Australia's Next Best Model, and we have the 5 best faculty members representing 5 different fields tonight. And this is going to be your chance to decide on which field you think has the most potential to change the world in the future. Which discipline you think will contribute most to making the world a better place. What we're going to do, by the way, before we start off, though, we have a special guest star tonight. Somebody unexpected just showed up. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, welcome Hookem. All right. Now, what we're going to do is have each faculty member introduce themselves very quickly, all right? So why don't we start right here with our first faculty member.
Good evening. I'm David Springer. I'm the Associate Dean and a professor in the School of Social Work, and it's a pleasure for me to be here tonight.
A social work guy, sensitive and caring.
Good evening. I'm Lee Mcallister. I'm a marketing professor at the Macomb School.
Do you know Lee? No, not until the end. All right? Lee Mcallister is the world's expert on coupons. Now, you know, UT has a lot of skills, but that's an impressive one.
Thank you, John.
Larry?
Larry Speck. I'm in the School of Architecture, was dean for 9 years, but teaching in the School of Architecture, and I have my own architectural practice.
By the way, who's been to the Austin airport? He designed the Austin airport. All right. If you don't like it, he knows nothing about it, though.
So I did not design the airport, and I have never been a dean, but my name is Sean Theriot, and I'm a professor in the government department.
All right. And Sean has been on 6 continents already. He's never been in Antarctica yet, but he has great hopes of getting there within the next 40 years, right?
Sure.
Finally, David?
I'm Dave Lottie. I'm the student dean in natural sciences.
I feel there was a setup.
I did not ask my students to cheer for me, did I?
David is probably the most extraordinary chemistry teacher this campus has. All right? Now we have our students over here. Do you guys want to just introduce yourself real quickly? These are the freshmen, by the way.
I'm Andrew Ziegler. I'm a government major in the School of Liberal Arts.
I'm Lisa Newman, and I'm a government major in the School of Liberal Arts.
I'm Adel Rusvi, and I'm a political communications major.
I'm Christine Thorne-Thompson. I'm Plan 2 and also math.
I'm Michelle Moon, and I'm a business major.
I am Stephanie. I'm a social work major.
I'm Jeremy Gatson, and I'm an economics major.
My name's Alan Goldstein. I'm also a business major.
I'm Drew. I'm an architecture and urban studies major.
And I'm Blake. I'm an infectious disease microbiology major.
Lottie, what did you do here? I feel the setup coming. All right, you know, we've had many debates in history. We had Lincoln and Douglas. We had Nixon, Kennedy, Perry, and White. No, we're not going to have that one. So instead, what we're going to have tonight is 5 faculty members. Each faculty member is going to get 5 minutes to argue why their field changes the world. When they get done, we're going to ask them questions, and in the end, you guys get to vote with your applause. The students get to also give their evaluations, and the students on the panel will also ask them some questions at the end. So how do we pick the first speaker? I could just ask natural sciences to applaud, but I'm not going to do that. All right? Instead, I'm going to hook him, draw a name out, okay? And where they don't know who's coming first because it's completely random. This is the moment we've been waiting for. Who will be not that person? Not that who do you like best, Hookham? All right. Oh, my God. Here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, the tension arises. Sean Theriot goes first, speaking for the government program, Liberal Arts and Government. Sean, the world is yours.
Great. Thank you all for coming tonight. It's an honor and a privilege to be here with you. And I can't possibly compete with Professor Lottie. I've already heard the applause, or Professor Mcallister in the classroom. My goal is that by the time that I retire, I influence as many students as they do in any given semester. Neither can I compete against the professional work of Professor Springer and Speck, what you'll hear about a little bit later. Their work is truly transformative. Now, my humble research focuses on a group of folks that include criminals, sexual harassers, child predators, home wreckers, prostitute solicitors, and public restroom participants with wide stances. Yes, that's right. I researched the U.S. Congress. At this point in my career, I've conducted 2 big research projects. My first research project examined the relationship between members of Congress and the people that they represent. In a book titled The Power of the People, I argue that the American public must be vigilant in controlling their members of Congress. While I was hoping to get the American public politically engaged, I'm not sure that I was advocating for freaks dressed like Uncle Sam, holding a sign with a picture of President Obama wearing a Hitler mustache. I'm currently researching party polarization in Congress. I'm trying to understand why it is that Democrats and Republicans in Congress seem to hate each other so much. Since I've started this project, Congress has gone from being merely dysfunctional to being utterly broken. Yes, that's right. What research I've done has led to a paralyzed Congress and President Obama with a Hitler mustache. While it's true that what starts here changes the world, I don't think that my work has changed the world in any positive way. So I guess at this point, I should just concede the debate and let you get on with figuring out who among the 4 of them is the most deserving. Before I concede, though, let me share with you who I think the most important people in this room are. It's not the people on the stage or even the jury. No, the most important people in the room are the people in the audience. It is only through the people in the audience and their predecessors that I know that I have transformed, at least my little corner of the world. Let me just tell you 3 short stories. After one particular semester at UT, I was honored and puzzled when one of my brightest students told me that he was enlisting in the U.S. Army, honored that my country would have someone of his character to defend it, but puzzled that he had voluntarily chosen to be on the front lines of a battlefield after he had successfully completed his degree. It was only some years later that I truly understood what the student had in mind. It was when he sent me in a frame a ballot from the first democratic and free and fair election ever held in Iraq. He had an engraving placed in the frame that read, "To Professor Sean Theriault, thank you for teaching us that the power of the people is alive and well, and for inspiring us to be better people because of it." I'm pleased to report that this student has completed 5 years in the Army, 3 tours of duty in Iraq, and is now a second-year law student. My second story involves one of those crazy elected officials that we seem to breed here in the state of Texas. She argued that Asian Americans had a responsibility to change their names to something that could be more easily pronounced in English. I'm pleased to report that she was not one of my former students. She had served for 12 years in a safe Republican district in the suburbs of Dallas. Finding a Democrat to defeat her would have been impossible. Luckily for all of us, someone figured out that she might be vulnerable in a primary. On a shoestring budget, and only with the lessons that he had learned in my elections class taken 4 years ago, I'm proud to report that one of my former students defeated her by 338 votes in the Republican primary, and come this January will be the youngest representative in the Texas House. My third story involves the more than 200 students that I've taken to Washington, D.C. as part of my undergraduate research team. Every spring, with 10 to 15 students in tow, we march up to Capitol Hill and meet the players behind the scenes to see how politics really work. This past year, we were lucky enough to meet with the chiefs of staff of the Majority Leader, the Minority Leader, and the Finance Committee. We also met with alumni of the trip, who are the personal assistant to the Majority Leader in the House, the legislative director for the ranking member in the Judiciary Committee, and the personal assistant to the senior senator from Texas. On one particular trip, I had the good fortune of traveling with a bright student from the Panhandle. After meeting with a special assistant to the president, we received a tour of the West Wing to the White House. Some years later, I got a tragic email from the student's father informing me that his son had died after a routine surgery had gone horribly wrong. He said that his son frequently reflected upon the trip, and how proud was I when I could share a photo of this particular student behind the president's podium in the White House briefing room.
All right. The bell will go off at exactly 5 minutes, no matter what people are saying, even in the middle of a word. So it's not impolite, it's just because we have time that way. All right, pick another name. The tension mounts. Who will be number 2? Ladies and gentlemen, the moment we're waiting for, it is David Lottie.
So the one thing about my discipline that's different than all of the other folks up here is that mine's the only one, it turns out, that when you were in elementary school, it was actually on your report card. There it was, first grade science S+. A pretty impressive thing. And so I would think under those circumstances that I'd have something of an advantage because you've been doing science your entire lives. The challenge with this, though, is that if I stopped and asked people, what is science, for the most part, I'd get pretty lousy answers to it. So I've got actually the correct answer. It's a song by Sting and the Police. I don't know if you all remember these guys. It's like 20 years ago. It's two lines. It's science is every breath you take, every move you make. That's it. And in fact, that is what science is. It's your physical being out there moving in the natural and material world. And now that I tell you that, it suddenly occurs to you that every one of you is a scientist. That's what's great about being in this class I have with 500 students. I look out there, and even though you might think, you know, no, that's not me, I don't like this stuff, I just want to be a doctor, the truth of the matter is, every one of you, when you get up in the morning, is a scientist because you engage this world around you and make the world a better place. How? I mean, maybe it's the fact that you feel the forehead of your kid's sister and it's warm and you give her acetaminophen, or maybe it's that you're able to pump up your bike tire, or maybe it's that your egg is kind of wet so you heat it up and it solidifies. This doesn't mean that you necessarily know what a prostaglandin is or that you know kinetic molecular theory or protein denaturization, but it does mean that you have intuitively figured out as a human being how to go out there and engage the world and change the world. At this point, though, this is where I stop and I tell you about the drag that it is to be a scientist on a certain level. Scientists have sort of been pushed into this place where Rush Limbaugh has actually said that we are one of the four corners of, let me get this word right, deceit. Deceit. I thought science was the truth, and yet somehow we've gotten to a point where, get this, he has lumped us with politicians. He has lumped us with journalists, and worst of all, with academicians, with professors. He's put us all in the same category as being a bunch of liars. And I find that so odd, because to me, when you wake up in the morning as a scientist, all you really do is look out there and you try and make the world a better place. And in fact, what's funny about Rush Limbaugh bringing this up in the first place is he'd be dead right now if it wasn't for scientists, because even 100 years ago, the average life expectancy on this continent was only about 30 years. You guys would be 100 years ago about ready to get old. And yet science comes along and it does things like take deserts and turns it into orange groves so we can eat. And it does things like see all these kids dying of disease, and it develops vaccines so that they can live. And so nowadays, everything's pretty darn good. You're going to live to be 60 or 90 or 120 years old, because that's what's happening. And in that time, there are amazing things that are available to you. For example, you can now hold a device in your hand like this that has all knowledge on it. That's pretty amazing. And you can talk to anybody in the world that you could possibly imagine that you would want to. That is incredible. And yet, that's not even the beginning of what's going to happen. Think about this for a second. Think about this. 30 years ago, when I was your age, there weren't personal computers, there weren't cell phones, there basically wasn't anything. That was 30 years ago. That's the equivalent of the age you are now. Look 30 years ahead to the year 2050. I will be dead, you will be alive, you'll be 50 years old, and think about what's going to happen. Just stop and think, what is the world going to be like because of science? So you think about something like this. You think about molecular biology, and you think, I wonder if by then they will have replaced all the old dead cells in my body with new ones, or with tissue that's brand new, or organs that are brand new, or maybe the biomedical engineers out there will make just a whole new me entirely so that I can live in this world. Or maybe that's not what you're into. Maybe you're into this part where you say, you know, they're getting to a point where computers are so smart that you combine them with robotics and you can have a friend like scientists wouldn't have otherwise, a friend to play with you. Or maybe you're just into cleaning up the world. Has it occurred to you that 30 years from now we're not going to be using fossil fuels? We're going to be driving around in vehicles that are using sustainable energy, and it's going to be really cheap, and it's going to be really effective. In fact, energy is going to be so cheap, I would imagine, if I wanted to fantasize about it, that I would be able to make jetpacks you could fly around in, and it'd be almost free. And that's you, the scientist. Don't be a scientist for a day, be a scientist for a lifetime. Thank you.
The third speaker for the night, the tension mounts. Here we go. The tension mounts. Who will it be? Oh my God, you have hand problems tonight. Hoof problems, excuse me, hoof problems. All right. It is going to be Larry Speck of the architecture program. Come on, get up for Larry. Come on, be proud. All right.
So I'm going to be a bad boy here. I think I'm supposed to talk about architecture. And I love architecture. I can talk about it till the cows come home. I'm a complete architecture junkie. But I was taking a leak in the men's room on the 3rd floor of Goldsmith Hall about an hour ago. And it's an amazing bathroom. It's got a window right there by the urinal. And you look down on the West Mall and you see all the action down there. It's a really great place to think. And so I'm standing there and I'm thinking about what I'm going to say tonight, and I just decided, you know, I don't want to talk about architecture. I love to talk about architecture. Great, amazing field. But this was supposed to be about what do you do that changes the world? And you know, I'm an architect, but I'm also a teacher. and I am very much a teacher. And I want to talk about being a teacher instead of being an architect. Several years ago, I was on a committee where we were asked to define the core purpose and the core values of the university. And God, hours and hours of discussing all of this, and what we came up with for the core purpose, and it's emblazoned in stone on the main building, is to transform lives for the benefit of society. That's what this university is about, and the kind of corollary thing of what starts here changes the world. It all came out of that kind of mission of the university, and I think the mission of the university is phenomenal and incredibly important, and I really do think it changes the world. But for me, that mission is all about teaching. Nobody told me when I started teaching 35 years ago how amazing it would be to be at this stage and have all these former students. I can't go to the grocery store without somebody stopping me and saying, "Oh my gosh, I had your class in 1984. I remember when you said blah, blah, blah." That's freaking amazing. Next week, I'll go to the Texas Society of Architects convention in San Antonio, and I will literally know a third of the people at that convention. They were students of mine. And they'll tell me the stories about all the cool things they're doing and the buildings they're involved in and how they're building cities and their families and their work. And, it's amazing to have had this contact with all of those people as their teacher. I think teaching is phenomenal. It is a way to touch people's lives in a very different way than as a parent or as a friend or in any other role. Probably all of you have teachers in high school and elementary school who you could point to and say, "Yeah, I wouldn't be the same person if it weren't for the influence of that teacher." Now, I'd like to say that teaching, it's a little bit bigger than just the official role of teaching or explicit teaching, like being a university professor or being a high school teacher. I think of a kind of missionary teaching that goes on, like Al Gore on global warming, or last week Bill Gates and Warren Buffett go to China to talk to all the billionaires over there and try to teach them how to be benevolent people, how to be philanthropists, how to help the world with their wealth. That's teaching. And these guys, at a stage of their life, they're beyond just making money. They've graduated into teaching. And teaching is also, in much more informal sense, it's mentoring. It's helping your colleague at work. It's helping your classmates in school. And there's also a whole world of teaching by example. As an architect, I'm very clear about the fact I teach as much through the work I do as I do in the classroom. And my students look at that work, they go, "That's what he's talking about," or, "Hey, he's not living up to what he's saying in class," So by the work we do, we teach as well. Teaching is about being articulate, about being elucidating, about being motivating, about being inspiring. It's a way of provoking imagination, provoking dreaming, envisioning. It's a very, very important part of our culture. So I'm here tonight to tell you, no matter what your discipline is that you major in, use this university to learn to be a really good teacher.
The tension mounts. Only two more names. Here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, David Springer from social work.
Well, good evening. I'd like to thank Dean Paul Woodruff and the School of Undergraduate Studies for hosting this event, and I'd like to thank each of you for being here tonight. And I'd like to say what a pleasure it is for me to join such an esteemed panel of my colleagues from across campus. They truly are the best at what they do. So I'm excited to share a little bit about what social workers do and who we are. At the core of who we are different. We look at the world through a different lens. Where others see problems, we see potential. Where others see shortcomings, we see strengths. Historically, the profession of social work has had luminaries that exemplify this spirit. Dorothea Dix, who single-handedly reformed mental health care in the 19th century, and Jane Addams, the founder of Hull House in Chicago and winner of the Nobel Peace Prize for the work that she did on behalf of the disenfranchised, are just two examples. As a social worker, you have a chance not just to make a living, but to make a difference, to make things change, to help someone who's in need. So following in the steps of Jane Addams, we're changing the world. Social workers are present from cradle to grave. We are pediatric oncology. We are foster care and adoption. We are juvenile and criminal justice, human trafficking, post-traumatic stress disorder, and domestic violence. We are alcohol and substance abuse. We are aging, Alzheimer's, and grief and loss. We are mental health and public health. We are homelessness and poverty. We are so many things to so many people. Our school is ranked 6th in the country among social work programs, and we are one of UT's most prized possessions in my estimation. If what starts here does change the world, then we are at the core of our university's promise. So consider with me just for a moment 3 or 4 brief examples of how our faculty and students are changing the world. And the first coalesces around childhood poverty. Among advanced industrial economies, the contours of American poverty are unique, enduring, and inimical to a decent life. Overall rates of poverty in the U.S. are highest among our peer nations, but poverty in the U.S. reserves its most potent fury against children, with that category of our population being 20%. So that's 1 in 5 kids who are poor. On any given night in Austin, 1,500 kids are without a home. We have professors in our school like Diana Donito and Miguel Ferguson that work tirelessly to influence policies that will lift children out of poverty. The second is juvenile and criminal justice, and this gets into some of my own work. I was recently asked to chair a juvenile justice Blue Ribbon Task Force, and my charge to the members of that task force when we met in the Texas Union for 2 days came in the form of a question, and it was this: if we could design the juvenile justice system in Texas and make it ideal, what would it look like? So big questions generate big answers, and even the Yankees up in Oklahoma are taking a look at some of our recommendations. If we want our neighborhoods and our communities to be safer, we can't just be tough on crime, we also have to be smart on crime. And our fight to reform the system goes on through the works of professors like Mike Lauderdale and Marilyn Armour. And then third, international social work. Our work reaches beyond the borders of Texas. We have students in 12 different countries doing internships, and to share just one example, in Brazil, one of our students has founded with her husband a group called Casa Brazil. Her name is Lizzie Schuler, and her husband's name is Joel. And the purpose of Casa Brazil is to make sure that children who can't otherwise have access to a good education are given that access. So Casa Brazil has teamed up with Austin businesses like the Spider House and Wheatsville Co-op and even Whole Foods to provide merit-based scholarships from the sale of coffee to the children of Brazilian coffee growers. It's kind of cool. And then finally, leadership. Social workers truly epitomize the servant leader. 2 U.S. senators and 7 U.S. representatives are social workers, and thankfully they have people like Sean to help them out. Quan Cosby, who caught the game-winning catch in the 2009 Fiesta Bowl with 18 seconds left, and who's now a wide receiver with the Cincinnati Bengals, is a graduate of our program. And Chelsea Adler, who you met just a few minutes ago, is currently enrolled in our program, and she's president of the UT Senate of College Councils. Thank you, Chelsea, for the leadership that you provide on our campus. So the disciplines presented on this stage, in their own way, design things. Architects design buildings, teachers design lives, business graduates design our places of work and our economy, and government leaders design our politics. Social workers design human relationships and our collective response to today's critical social problem. We're changing the future of communities and the future of families and the future of people. Thank you.
As if you're wondering, the final speaker, Lee Mcallister from the Department of Marketing in the Macomb School.
Greetings, World Changers. I'm here to bring you some tools to do the kind of changing that you can learn about in those classes. I'm a marketing professor. The 2 most important tools that we have in marketing. Number one is marketing research, and number two is positioning. And I'm going to give you some examples of those in my 5 minutes, and we're going to have a test at the end. Marketing research and positioning. Remember that. Okay. What is this all about? Why do I say these tools will be helpful to you? If you want to be a scientist, you want to change the world with science, you can get the computer to do the next great thing, but building a better mousetrap will not cause the world to beat a path to your door. Marketing's about getting that path beaten to your door. To do that, you first got to do, what's the first thing? Marketing research. Understand your customer. Look at your customer. Say you start on your science career as a research scientist at 3M. You're working in a lab. You come up with a great new chemical insight. How do you get that used? Marketing research. Who's your customer for that? Your customer is your boss, the person running that lab that decides how to allocate resources across projects. You go talk, you're doing your marketing research, talking to the person running that lab, find out what that person's priorities are. What's that person trying to achieve? That's your marketing research part. Now, positioning. Why should that lab manager use your science project instead of the project down the bench from you? You look at your project. What is it about your project that solves that lab manager's problem? You go talk to them about it in that way. It's much easier for the lab manager to want to go forward with your project if they understand how your project solves their problem. That's marketing. Understand your customer's problem. Show them how your product or your science project solves their problem. Okay, another example. Say you want to go to Congress. You're a freshman now, you're working your way, you got sophomore, junior, senior, you're applying to law school. You got to get that law degree so you can go to Congress. You decide you want to go to law school at the University of Texas. Only 6,000 people are applying for those 400 slots. Maybe you've got good grades. Maybe you've done a good job on the LSAT, but you've got a lot of competition. Why should the dean of the law school choose you instead of that kid over there? How are you going to figure it out? What's the first thing you're going to do? Marketing research. I did a little marketing research about the University of Texas Law School. I went to the website. I read the dean's statement. He said, "We are concerned with local environmental law. Maybe you worked in your hometown on groundwater rights. Aha, you're a good student, you got the grades, you got the LSAT, and you have experience on a subject that law school's interested in. That's positioning. You write your letter, you talk about you want to come to the University of Texas Law School because you're interested in groundwater rights, and you know the University of Texas is on the front edge of that. Positioning. He's your customer. He's got a problem, groundwater rights. You've got a solution. That's why to choose you instead of the guy down the road. 46 seconds. We've got a timer up here. Okay. So here's the test. Anything you want to do. You want to get somebody to go out on a date with you? You want to talk a professor into being part of a panel? Anything you want to do. You want to go help kids that have alcohol abuse problems? Anything you've got to do. 2 steps. What's the first thing you're going to do? Right. What's the second thing you're going to do? Positioning. Oh, A+. Now, one little pitch for the business school. If this interests you, if it sounds fun, the idea of come to the Macomb School.
Extraordinary job. Thank you. Now, in any good debate, you want to give people a chance to engage in what we call rebuttal. So what we're going to have is each speaker is going to get 30 seconds at their seat to respond to everyone else. And we'll go in exactly the same order we had before. How's that sound? All right. So we're going to start with Sean, right? 30 seconds. 30 seconds. The clock is going to start.
Again, it's been my pleasure to be up here with such fine speakers. What I'd like to leave you with is science is great, and they do lots of wonderful things in science. Teachers do wonderful things, including architecture teachers. Social work, very important, and marketing top-notch. It's amazing how easily Congress can screw all that up. So unless I do my job to inspire you all to get involved in politics and to run for office, we'll all fail.
David?
The great thing about science is that, unlike all the other disciplines that change their minds constantly, it's left one year, right the next. It's modern one year, it's retro the next. Science is always moving forward, and in fact, it's moving forward exponentially. It's just a staggering thing. I always tell my students, don't be a passive learner, be active. Well, same thing in your lives. Don't be passive and sit there and accept all the gifts given to you by science around the holiday season. Become part of the group of people who actually make it happen. Because when you're 50 years old, that world's going to go flying by you unless you're engaged.
Larry Speck.
So I think any of the people here would be complete hypocrites if they didn't admit that teaching was really central to changing the world, because what the heck are they doing day in and day out? And in fact, Sean's example of those three cases where important things came out of his discipline, they really came out of his teaching about the kind of inspiration he gave to those kids. He made my case for me for 3 minutes of his talk. So I still think it's teaching. That's where it's at.
All right. David?
All right, Martin Luther King Jr. suggested that life's most important question is this: what are you doing for others? So whatever your choice of major or career, I hope that you use the next 4 years here at UT to formulate your own response to that question. What's your thumbprint going to be? Will the world be a better place because you were here? If you can formulate a response to that question through any of these majors, then you're doing a great job. And if that doesn't inspire you, just think that if you get your BSW, you too can be a wide receiver in the NFL.
And finally, Lee Mcallister.
You're all going to be doing marketing whether you come to the business school or not.
Now we have 8 minutes for questions from our panel over here. I have no idea what they're going to ask, but whoever asks the first question gets to ask it. So, ladies and gentlemen of the panel, what's your first? Okay, over here, a gentleman in a blue shirt. Introduce yourself first, if you can.
Hello, I'm Drew Finke. I'm in architecture and urban studies. My question was, a lot of this, part of our mission statement is that we change people. So since you took the first class in whatever your respective disciplines are, how have you been changed by your choice to study and devote your lives to the things that you've been working on?
Any of you want to answer that? Larry, of course.
So, there have been 10 or 12 amazing teachers that have had a huge impact on me. There's an award they give, one award a year to outstanding teachers in architecture in the whole North America. I had 5 winners of that award when I was in college. There have only been 35 ever, and 5 of those taught me. They were amazing, and they certainly did completely change my life. So I would say, I'm saying this today because I feel like that has had a huge impact on me, and I can't help but think that happens a lot.
Other responses?
I'm a better husband and a better dad. I think that social workers operate from a stance of compassion. We want to make the world a better place, and I want to live that every day for my family.
That's called the emotional appeal. Next thing he's going to show us pictures, but that's okay. All right. One more response. Anyone else?
Scientists are cold, heartless creatures incapable of loving.
That's called the honest response. Another question. Okay, here we go. Let's try this microphone since we know it works.
I'm Christine Thorne-Thompson. I have a question on a different note. If you were a bar of soap, whose shower would you be in?
My wife's.
Sean?
Nancy Pelosi.
Anyone else volunteer who they want me to
I would give mine away to somebody that needs it more than I do.
It's called the disgusting response. All right. Another question. Yes, here we go.
Hi, again, I'm Stephanie. I'm a social work and Spanish major. Which TV character or personality do you think best kind of embodies your field?
So, go ahead.
Lee Mcallister.
I have a confession to make. I am a marketing professor, but I do not have a TV. So I'm not going to be able to answer this question either.
Scandalous.
I do have soap, though. I do have soap.
So, yes, Sean.
If my students ever give this response, I'd be very upset. Because in the Constitution, there are multiple articles. The first article is Congress. But I'm going to give an answer from the second article, which is about the executive branch. And it would be President Bartlett from the West Wing.
From the West Wing. All right.
There's only one scientist on television that I know of, I think, and he synthesizes methamphetamine for a living. It's Bryan Cranston, and he's a fine actor. He was on Malcolm in the Middle, but don't do that at home.
Do it on TV. All right.
So the dad on the Brady Bunch was an
architect. Dad in the Brady Bunch. Absolutely.
He didn't seem to ever do anything.
He never did anything, but
he spent a lot of time at home. It looked like a great
like
profession.
most architects. All right. Come on. And finally?
The closest I can think is Frasier.
One more question for the panel. Here we go. Now we're going to have voting.
I'm Michelle Moon. I'm in the business school. Two drunk men walk in a bar. What would they say about your college?
It was the best 8 years of my life.
Who's buying?
Who's buying? That's the marketing answer. I'm sorry. Larry, what do they say about architects?
Two drunk men in a bar. I don't know. I guess they'd... I think probably fantasize. They'd have a good fantasy about what the world is like outside the bar.
Okay. All right. David, what does the drunk say about your field?
I think they're wondering why the scientists are back in the residential hall studying for chemistry and calculus exams.
Okay, you guys ready to vote? All right, now this is the moment you've been waiting for. We're going to have the student panel vote, all right? Each of them has a ballot. They're going to write down the profession they believe changes the world most, all right? So you're going to write down the professor or the field, okay? Don't reveal them yet. All right? Write them down. Are you ready? On 3, reveal your names. 1, 2, 2.5, 2 3/4, 2 5/8, 3. Thoreau, Mcallister, Lottie. Okay, it's 2, 2, and 1. Springer, social work, a new vote in. Government gives a 3. Government's ahead. Marketing is now 3rd place. Social work and Lottie. So if I get it right, it's Lottie. That's 3, right? And then we have government, and government, right? Is that right? So we have a tie. Oh. What should we have them do? Should they do something like dance? A dance-off! Sean and David. Come on. All right, I think we're going to settle for a tie tonight. The problem is we have only one award. This is the problem. We have only one award. So each of them gets to get part of the award. First of all, we have a ribbon. It is a professionally designed sash that they will wear on campus for the next year. Every day they wear it. And I think, obviously, because he's a dean, he should be wearing the sash. All right? Status. You are now known as the World Changer. And the second person gets the world to bat around. All right? Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your time, and I hope you enjoyed it. Go home and study.
Good for a government guy.